Have you found yourself going deep into therapy, meditation, breathwork, somatics, maybe even plant medicine, and yet you still feel like there's something missing? Today's episode is for you. I'm joined by shadowwork coach and trauma specialist Peter Isaia, and we're diving into the parts of ourselves we've been hiding from others and also from ourselves. We talk about the real roots of symptoms like burnout, people-pleasing, autoimmune flares, and the constant need to fix ourselves. Pete shares how the stories we unconsciously create in moments of pain, like I'm not enough or I'm broken, become identities that literally shape ourselves, our choices, and our symptoms. Without further ado, let's get into it. First time I've seen you since having little Aubrey. Congratulations.
It's Audrey.
Audrey, sorry.
Yeah, it would probably be Aubrey if it was a boy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of like an unusual name, but I've since met two people who've called their baby Audrey, so maybe it's coming back.
Oh, you're ahead of the time.
Such an old school name, but then I am 63.
How are you going with fatherhood?
It's the most challenging and rewarding thing you can ever do, or that I've ever experienced. Yeah, the first week we had the best day and worst day of our life in the same week, because the day she was born was amazing, and like 6 days later she nearly died.
Wow.
Had to be resuscitated, and we had to go up to intensive care, and it's sad. Like, I can feel myself choking up when I bring it up, but now she's totally fine. Like, she's healthy, no problems at all. But so it was, we didn't go to plan. We had all these plans, but you have this birth plan, and then nope, man makes a plan and God laughs.
Yeah, that's I've heard so many stories of people having that plan, and then it's almost, people say, well, the lesson of the baby is to be like, you just got to go with what's happening.
Yeah, we had to just make decisions in the moment, and some of those decisions caused upset. But I'd go through the whole thing again for what we have as a result of that, which is a beautiful little family and a gorgeous little daughter who just lights my world up. When I'm not working, all I want to do is be with her laughing.
Wow.
Beck went into labor on my birthday. And
oh my goodness.
She arrived 2 days later.
Oh, that's a good delayed birthday present.
Yeah, but also a 36-hour labor for her.
Yeah, not ideal for Beck.
Oh, no, she's a trooper, though. Like, the other thing I realized out of this whole process is that I waited a long time because I needed the right mother, and I got the perfect mother. Like, Beck, she just blows me away. I had strong instinct that she was going to be a great mum, but she's exceeded even my wildest expectations. Her dedication and commitment to providing for Audrey what she needs just blows me away every day.
Wow. That's so amazing.
Yeah,
you look so happy.
Well, I am. Yeah, it's like when I talk about Audrey, of course I'm going to light up.
Yeah.
And I nearly wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd like to probably touch on that.
Sure.
Yeah. So if we start, you worked with obviously a large spectrum of people. So people that have been incarcerated, people who are Hollywood A-listers. What have you learned is the common thread amongst all humans, and whether they have trauma, big, small, whatever their background is, what have you noticed is like that common thread?
Yeah, great. Thank you for that question. And I have worked from people from all walks of life, and it's kind of like it levels the playing field. No matter how much money you have, what your status is, where you live, what sex, race, religion, none of that matters. We're so more alike than we are different. And in terms of what I've learned about trauma is that, and this actually comes from Gabor Mate, so it's not an original idea, but I definitely support this idea 100%. And that is that your trauma isn't what happened to you. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think that their trauma is the thing that happened to them. The trauma is what's happening inside of you now because of what happened to you. And so when I'm working with a client as a trauma therapist, I'm a trauma therapist and a coach. predominantly a coach, but I still do some trauma therapy. And so I make sure that people know this distinction, that when we're doing trauma therapy, we're not going to work with what happened in the past because we can't do anything about that. And you don't even have to revisit it. It's that your trauma impacted you in a way. When we have great upsets in our life, it impacts us in many ways. So it'll impact us physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And so the impact of trauma is that we store it in our body, and we store it mostly as a story or an identity. And so your trauma isn't what happened to you, but it's the identities that got created and the stories that got created around what happened to you that are holding you in this incomplete state of being. And so when I'm working with a trauma client, I'm looking at what's going inside of you now, and how can we challenge those identities and those stories, because we can't go back and do anything about the past. And so it's really important to dig up those stories. And when I say stories, I'm not necessarily saying fictions, but when we have upsetting events, there's the event, and then there's meaning that we gave the event. And a lot of the suffering is in the meaning that we made about the event rather than the event itself. And so, yeah, trauma touches us all, no matter, what stage of life we're in. So that's kind of what I've learned from working with people. One guy that comes to mind, this is a beautiful story. I was working out in the Pitjantjatjara lands in the middle of Australia, so very remote. I think it's 4 hours light aeroplane flight from Alice Springs into the middle of nowhere, and there's 8 Indigenous communities out there, very remote. And I even had to go for another hour's drive in a 4-wheel drive to this riverbed where this old Indigenous elder guy, full white hair, white beard, lovely guy. I think he was in his 80s, and he was just out there on his own. I had to go and find him because he was meant to get on the plane to go into Alice Springs for his dialysis. And I went out there to pick him up, and I said, "Oh, come on, I'm taking you. You got to go to Alice for your dialysis." He goes, "No, I'm not going there." I'm like, "Look, you haven't been for 2 weeks, and you're well overdue. And do you know that if you don't have dialysis, that you will eventually die because the potassium's going to build up in your body?" He just laughed. He goes, "Yeah, I know all about that." "So you don't want to go to Alice Springs?" He goes, "No, I don't want to go." I'm like, "So you know that if you stay here, you can die?" He laughed again. He goes, "Why are you so worried about my death?" He was just laughing when he was saying it, like that, with an authentic, genuine thing. He goes, "I don't want to go and die in Alice Springs." He goes, I'm from this land." He says, "See that tree over there? I was born under this tree, under that tree. This is the land. This is home for me. This is where I was born. This is where I entered the world. This is where I'll leave the world." And he's just laughing. And I couldn't believe just his acceptance of his situation. And he had no attachment to white man's medicine or culture around death. And it just was such an impactful thing that will stay with me forever, that when my time comes to leave this world, I hope I go out with a smile on my face like his. So he was this guy out in the middle of nowhere, but he taught me one of the deepest spiritual lessons.
Oh, that's a really great lesson to get right in front of your face, being like, oh, why are we so afraid of death? And maybe I actually just want to be at home, and death is a natural part of the life cycle, and I'm happy. Like, I don't need to take on your context. But I did want to touch on where you started talking about Gabor Mate and how the trauma that we experience, often it's the meaning that we've made of it that is the thing that holds us back in a way, or festers in our body. Why do you think we do that? Because I'm of the belief that our body always does things to support us in any way, shape, or form. It's trying to help us. And maybe the things that we're trying to do aren't necessarily working the way that we think, but it's always got our best interests at heart. So why do you think our bodies try and make meaning of things, even though it might not be supportive, or it might not still be supportive?
I think I have the answer for that question. So a lot of our trauma happens when we're very young, or at least mine did, and a lot of my clients, their traumas from childhood. And when we're a child, we're quite under resourced. We can get overwhelmed quite easily. And so if we're being traumatized as a young person, we don't really have the resources, unless there's people there to take care of us, to deal with to deal with our trauma. So we go into the fight or flight response, or fight, flight, or freeze. And I think freeze is the most common. So a young child who's having a lot of trauma doesn't have the option of dealing with the trauma in the moment. So they have to encapsulate it. And it's like they take a Polaroid shot of that trauma and they file it away in their unconscious in the too hard basket. I'll deal with that later, because right now I just need to get on with life and survive whatever it is I'm going through. So this is a protective adaptation. And there's a good analogy to this. There's a single cell amoeba. And if you put this single cell amoeba in a glass of water and then you add one drop of Indian ink into that water, the environment for the amoeba becomes toxic. So it can't live in a toxic environment. So what it does is it takes the Indian ink out of the water and draws it into its body, through its membrane, into its cell, and encapsulates it in a membrane inside of the amoeba to protect itself from the toxic environment. It puts it, it files it somewhere as I can encapsulate this in me, so at least my environment is safe now. Now, it can't take all of it in, but it takes as much of it as it can in. Then if you put that amoeba back into a glass of pure water, the amoeba will recognize that the environment is now safe. So it will release that toxic Indian ink back into the water, because now at those parts per million, it's no longer toxic or threatening. So this is what we do with trauma, is that trauma's too toxic. I'm going to bottle it up and I'm going to wait until I'm an adult and I'm resourced and I have the capacity and I have people supporting me, and I'm going to release this trauma because the environment's now safe to do so.
So do you feel, when you do work with people that have experienced trauma, when they are in that appropriate, supportive, resourced environment, that they can fully heal, partially heal, allow that trauma to be released from them?
Yeah, I think they need to feel safe. That they need to feel safe. If they feel safe enough, that represents the environment being safe enough. And so I make sure that the clients I work feel really safe with me. It's like a really important part of the process, because if they do feel safe, then they're more likely to get their healing. And this is the work. This is why, in California, they use MDMA therapy for post-traumatic stress. So this is why MDMA works for trauma, because it shuts off the amygdala. That's what the MDMA does in the brain. And the amygdala is like your alarm center. It's your threat detection center. And so people who have trauma, they're always a bit hyper vigilant because their amygdala is always a little bit activated. And so they never really feel safe. And then they'll go and do trauma therapy with MDMA. They take the MDMA and the threat detection center in the brain, the amygdala, gets turned off. They now feel completely safe. And so they're able to open the doors of their unconscious and let all those memories, all those traumas, all those stories re-emerge because they feel safe enough to face them. So you can create a level of safety. I have people getting close to that level of trauma release. There's other ways to do it. Holotropic breath work is another way of having people discharge trauma from the body. And to some extent, you don't even need to do that level. You don't even need to do those two approaches. I work predominantly as a shadow work coach, and I can get pretty similar results just by people identifying their hidden shadows, which are quite often the unresolved traumas, the stories, the identities they created, and just looking at those and recreating those identities and those stories in a positive way. So you can get different amounts of healing using different modalities.
So you just touched on their shadow work. For someone who has never heard of shadow work or the shadow, what is it?
Okay. Yep. So the simplest explanation of that or definition of the shadow is just what's hidden from me about me. So what about me am I hiding? So this is a Jungian concept. So basically we have our ego or our persona, and that's the bit of me that I'm happy to show the world. And then my shadow is what's behind that mask, which is the bits of me that I don't show the world. They might be my insecurities and my fears and my self-limiting beliefs and my addictions and my unhealed traumas and the dirty little secrets I have and the lies I tell. These are all the things that we hide, right? We don't wear that on our sleeve. It doesn't serve us generally to do that. So we have lots of things about us that we deny or reject or we give up on. Now, the shadow kind of actually, we all have a shadow, by the way, and we also created our own shadow, which is interesting. I don't know if we'll get to go into that on this call, but so your shadow is those parts of you that are hidden from the world or from yourself even. So there's parts of your shadow that you know you're hiding. So if you've got an addiction and you're hiding that, then that's a part of your shadow that you know about. But there's also parts of your shadow that you don't even know about in the unconscious, at the level of subconscious. And there's ways to reveal them, but they're concealed. Now, I've got blind spots. And so I can't see my own blind spots by definition. Even though I'm a shadow work coach, I still can't see my own blind spots. And so my partner, Beck, she's my strongest ally in revealing my blind spots because she can see them. And if you've ever been in a relationship with somebody, you'll notice is that what each party is attempting to do is point out the other party's blind spots.
How do you know whether, say, for instance, Beck, your partner, comes to you and says, Pete, XYZ is one of your blind spots. Like, I'm pointing this out to you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then go, okay, because you obviously can't see it, so you're not believing it really at that point.
Yeah.
How do you then take that on and go, okay, I'm trusting that that is something that I need to work on, or I can see and I have done this in my
It doesn't
relationships
work like,
as well.
yeah.
You're like, what? This is you. This is a you thing. This isn't a me thing. So how can you differentiate between possibly they're projecting or you're still trying to protect that hidden shadow part of you?
Good question. And there are clues. So if you're defensive or dismissive about what they're pointing out to you, that's the signal. If you're getting defensive, hey, no way, that's not me, that's you, you're projecting that onto me. That's a defensive reaction. That's a dismissive reaction. And I discovered it myself. So I'd already done years of shadow work and thought I got most of it done. And in my relationship with Beck, she's pointed out 3 of my blind spots in the last few years. I'll tell you what they are, right? Controlling, manipulative, and selfish.
Things that we don't want to be called.
Exactly. That's why I'm unlikely to see it. So parts of our shadow are those traits, qualities, or characteristics that we reject or deny in ourselves. And so the ones that you find the most repulsive, so I hate controlling, manipulative, and selfish people. So the qualities that I find the most repulsive, I'm least likely to see them in myself. They're the last ones I'll ever see. But because I know those things exist, just not in me, then they must exist in other people. So I'll see controlling, manipulative, and selfish people everywhere. But that's me projecting my unowned shadow onto them. So Beck had a conversation with me one time. She says, "Oh, you're being controlling and manipulative." I just got real prickly. I'm like, "What, me? What are you talking about? Like, I'm so not that way. I'm so easygoing and, and supportive and all the rest of it." And, she tried to point this out to me several times. And at some point, I recognized that I was being very defensive and dismissive. And I know that that's the signal. So I decided to sit with it and reflect on it. And where can I see that? Can I see that? And then I saw it. I'm like, it's not that I am controlling. It's that I can be. It's not that I am manipulative. It's that I can be. And so I went back to her and I said, you know what? You were right. I couldn't see it. Thank you for pointing it out. In this instance, I was being controlling and manipulative. And the reason I couldn't see that is because it was in my shadow, because I don't like those traits. So my understanding of shadow work, or at least the way I approach it, is that we can be all things. I've done so much shadow work. I admit I can be
So
all
there's no
things.
one trait. Say, for instance, if someone's listening to this and they're like, manipulative.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm like, that's just not a thing that I would ever have. So there's always, everyone is always going to have some trait come up in some way at some point, possibly.
I suggest if you can't see it, ask yourself, have I been that way in the past? Am I being that way now? Or would I secretly like to be in the future, but I don't allow myself to be? If you ask those three questions, you're more likely to see it. So why is shadow work even important? Well, if I can be controlling and manipulative, but I can't see that, then I'm at a disadvantage. But if I know I can be that, then I'm more likely to see when I am being that way, and then I can do something about it. But if your partner's pointing out to you that you're being controlling and manipulative, and you're going, no, I'm not, that's you, you're projecting, rah, 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 you're the block, you're the obstacle, because you can't see how you're being, because that aspect of you is still in shadow. So, one example I like to use is my young nephew come up to me. This is a few months old now, this story. He says, oh, Uncle Pete, you're a real arsehole.
Lovely nephew. Just direct.
And the old me would have, got defensive and picked a fight with him. And, the shadow informed me, said to him, you know what, Jai, I definitely can be, because I can be an arsehole. I'm not an arsehole, but I can be one. I'd be foolish to think I can't. And, I used to be foolish because I used to believe I couldn't be controlling, manipulative, or selfish. And now I can see all of those attributes in me as potential.
How do you, for instance, with controlling, manipulative, and selfish, stereotypically, we think of those as negative traits. So how do you come to the point where you're okay with going, well, sometimes, I can be controlling. Sometimes I can be manipulative.
Yeah. And so, controlling has a connotation of being negative. If you're in a car that's going 150 miles an hour on the highway, you want to be in control of that car. So control's neither good nor bad. It really depends on the context. Same with manipulation. Manipulate means to move with your hand. Manus is hands. So to manipulate means to move something with your hands. So to manipulate something is neither good nor bad. But if you're being manipulative in a relationship to try and gain an advantage over your partner without them knowing about it, then in that context, manipulation has a negative context. Even selfish to some extent. I suppose self-interest, to be self-interested is okay, especially for people pleasers. They're rarely selfish. That's why I couldn't see it, actually, because I used to be a rampant people pleaser. So when I was accused of being selfish, I'm the opposite of that. But I can be both. I can be a people pleaser and I can be selfish.
And that was one of the main ones when I started doing shadow work a couple of years ago. That was my main one that really made me go, oh, whoa, okay, shadow work is amazing at doing, because someone had called me selfish. And I was like straight away going, I am the furthest thing from selfish. I went into full defensive, like trying to prove all the ways that I'm not selfish. And then I sort of thought about it in a different way. Well, if I'm not selfish, then I'm what? Selfless. And for me, how I understood it was like, well, selfless means less of myself. I don't want to be less of myself all the like, that's not good. Like being me is good. So I sort of, for me, that's how it helped me go, okay, well, yes, maybe being selfish in some ways is good and being selfless in some ways is also good, but it can have negative and positive sides. So I guess that's what you're saying. When people start to identify their shadows, the way that we deal with them is understanding them in context and when they can be helpful and when they can be not so helpful.
Yep, that's part of it. And there's another part to it, in that the mistake that people make, it's not that you are selfish or that you are selfless. Most people are in a conflict, and the conflict is that, am I a good person or am I a bad person? Am I angel or am I a devil? And the conflict is when it's this or that. And this is where most of us are. I'm a good person. I'm a real good person. Next thing, you're acting up like a, right jerk. And then you're confused because, how come I'm behaving like this? I'm normally a good person. And then I must be a jerk. And then the self-loathing, inner critic comes over. I'm really just a jerk. And so that's a conflict that most of us are in. I was in that conflict most of my life. Am I
have
this
that
or am I
conflict
that?
right now. If anyone's listening, you're saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been feeling the last couple of months.
Okay, right. So this is what Carl Jung calls being able to hold the tension of opposites. It's not that you are one or the other. It's that you can be either.
Mm.
So I'm neither selfish nor selfless. I can be both of those things. It's the difference between I am or I can be. So I can be all things, and I know this about myself now. I can be all those traits and qualities and characteristics. There's not one
So
I
is that
wouldn't own.
separate from what you were saying before about, I'm the angel and the devil. I'm trying to prove whether I'm a good person or a bad person.
Correct.
When you are, I can be,
Hmm.
that is a separate idea or trait to, I know I am inherently a good person and can be these things.
Yeah, I would say we're not inherently good people. There's no evidence of that. There's a great line in the book Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He witnessed all the atrocities under Stalin in the gulags where millions of people were slaughtered by their family members and neighbors. And the quote says that the line between good and evil runs through the heart of every man and woman. And so we all have the capacity for good and evil. You're a fool to think that, well, you can be a fool, sorry. Not that you are a fool. You can be a fool. I had a client recently actually, and their aha moment was when I pointed out to them that they had been fooled by their ex-partner. And the reason they were still lost and confused is they didn't want to admit that they'd been fooled. Because, people don't want to be a fool. And I said, it's not that you are a fool, but you can be. And then she goes, oh, wow, yeah, I've so not wanted to be a fool that I hadn't been able to see that aspect of it. And then she goes, oh, right, yeah, I was fooled. Because she was a very smart woman. And so she doesn't like foolish people. And so if she thinks she can't be fooled, this is why when you identify an aspect of your shadow, you're better off. I'm much better off knowing that I can be fooled than thinking I'm really smart and I can't be fooled. So that was a part of her shadow that she got to see, that she can be fooled. And she was fooled. And when she saw that she had a big light bulb moment, let go of a lot of her angst.
Okay, body break time. If you've been soaking in the episode and your brain is buzzing, gently tilt your ear towards your shoulder. Now, the other side. One more time. And again. Let your shoulders drop. Your nervous system loves a little movement and soft attention. It's how we remind our body it's safe right now in the present moment. How do you navigate identity? Because a lot of people attach these different traits to their identity. And if these traits are fluid and we can be either or at different times, how I can just imagine people being, okay, well, who am I then? Because now I feel like I'm neither or I'm both.
Who I say I am, I think my perception creates my reality. And in a way, I'm not an expert in identity at all. I mean, it's a whole subclass of psychology, and I haven't studied identity. So I'm just speaking from experience or what I've observed in myself and in others. So our identity is a construct. It's something we create, or partially we're given it. We're given our name. We're told what sex we are. I've even know what astrology sign I am. We assign a job to us, and I'm a father, a brother, so all these things form part of our identity or construct. But the part of identity that I'm more interested in as a shadow work coach is the identities that get created in moments of great upset. So some of the identities that I've created in moments of great upset are the people pleaser, the victim, the inner saboteur, Shifty Pete.
Shifty Pete. I love Shifty Pete.
I knew it.
So how does Shifty Pete show up, and how has that shadow helped?
Great question. Every shadow has a gift, and every gift has a shadow. So Shifty Pete, he's the dodgy one in me that he likes to get away with stuff. He likes to get up to no good when nobody's looking and not get caught. And he gets a bit of a thrill out of that. Mm-hmm. And so, but there's a darker side to that aspect of me. So I've done things that I'm not proud of, that have made me feel shame, even deep shame in some of my behaviors, but I was being shifty and dodgy about it. You can think of things like shoplifting or cheating on your partner and these kind of things, but mine was something else. And so, if you're cheating on your partner or stealing from your employer or shoplifting and you're getting away with that, then that's the shifty side of you. And well, you think you're getting away with it, and the getting away with it gives you a dopamine hit. So it becomes a thrill that you're getting away with something, and that then it becomes like an obsession. Now I feel compelled to do this thing because I get such a hit off it. So there was this part in me playing out. 20 years ago, I was being shifty and dodgy, and a coach of mine pointed it out to me, and she looked at me and she goes, "You're up to something, Pete." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Shows you're doing something shifty in your life. I says, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I can see it in your eyes." She goes, "You're doing something in the area of sex, drugs, or money that you feel shame about." She said that, I saw it. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. So that was a part of my shadow, Shifty Pete. Nobody knew what I was up to. I knew what I was up to. But it was so shameful. I was even hiding it from myself. Even though I knew I was doing it, I was still hiding it so deep down that I was never going to confront it. And if this woman hadn't pointed it out, I may never have owned that part of myself. And this is like a lot of addicts will hide their addiction. So I've worked with clients where their partner was hiding their drinking, like they'd find bottles of scotch hidden in all random places in the house because the person was hiding their addiction. And anything that I hide has power over me. Anything that I hide is by definition shadow. So the things I hide from me have power over me. Well, they disempower me, put it that way. And they keep me stuck. And that's why addicts can stay addicts for decades. And you'll know that in the 12-step program in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is to admit that you have a problem. And when you tell someone else, when you get up and stand in front of a group of people and say, "Hi, my name's Pete and I'm an alcoholic." And when you say, "I have not done that, I've not needed to." But when you do that, you're taking it out of shadow into the light of day, and it's your addiction's no longer a shadow, and it loses a lot of its power over you. And that's why it doesn't work for everybody, but probably 50% of people respond to the 12-step program, and they need to admit their problem. So anything that's in my shadow, when I'm doing shadow work, it's one thing to identify it, but the next step is to declare it to at least one other person. You need to tell one other person, otherwise the temptation is to keep hiding it. So whenever I identify a part of my shadow, I tell my partner, Beck.
Are you telling them trusted people, the thing that you're doing or the trait that's in your shadow?
All of it.
All of it, yeah.
I'll tell them all of it. I share public on my website about my addictions to alcohol, cocaine, and pornography. Now, a lot of people wouldn't share that publicly, but and I took some risk in doing that. And I thought, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And then I just thought, I'm doing it because they are truths for me. I did have those issues. I don't have those issues anymore. When I had them, they had a lot of power over me. And so by declaring them now, they don't affect me at all, because I know the power of revealing, first of all, seeing and owning parts of my shadow, and then just declaring them. I don't necessarily have to tell everybody everything about my life, because we all have a right to privacy. But the bits of my shadows that I'm happy to reveal publicly, they do me no harm, and I'm free. I'm liberated. I feel liberated from those things. And by doing that, I turned my life around.
As you said, it's that
like
it's
180
an
degrees.
empowering thing, versus when we keep it in the shadow, it's disempowering because it's hidden or it's in a blind spot. We don't even realize how much power it's taking away from us.
Yeah. And if we're doing something sneaky, shift Pete, or we're lying or deceiving others and ourselves, there's a big cost to that, a huge cost that I never knew existed. And the cost is that when you're doing that, you can't trust yourself, and you won't trust yourself. And so you become untrustworthy to yourself, and some people will even pick up on it. And so I was definitely untrustworthy when I was doing all these shifty things. And so now I trust myself. Like, I trust myself 100%. I trust myself so much that I know that I can be untrustworthy. And so because I know I can be untrustworthy, if I'm being untrustworthy, I'll see it. But if I think I can't be untrustworthy, then I'm not going to see it when I'm being that way.
Because you
You
can
getting
see
it?
both sides, you know when you're in which one.
Exactly. But if you can only see one side, if I haven't got this perfect persona, and this is the thing with social media, you know, everyone presents their perfect persona on social media. They don't show their insecurities, their fears, their, you know, their toxic relationship they're in, or, you know, their eating disorder or whatever other thing. They're just projecting.
And you're sort of creating a prison for yourself in a way, because like, this is what I've put forward, so everything in my life has to be like that. So whenever anything isn't, you shove it down further and further and further, because you don't want to see it, because it doesn't fit the picture that you're putting forward, which is what you say, like, that's the ego, which is what you're putting forward to everyone that you want everyone to see.
Yeah.
And then the shadow is what you don't want people to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there common shadows or trends that you see amongst different types of people? Say, for instance, are there different ones typically men might feel over women, and vice versa, because of obviously the stories that we're, like, the cultures that we grow up in, and society and all those things often can play a part?
Okay. So in this part, I'll name some that come to mind and I'm talking about shadow identities now. So an example might be, this is something because I work with couples quite a lot. A woman who's in a relationship and she's adopted the identity of mother and has no idea she's doing that. And she's mothering her partner because she sees him as a wounded little boy. And so the relationship becomes like mother-child caretaker. And then the guy will resent it because he's being mothered and micromanaged. And the intimacy and sexuality will disappear pretty quickly because the relationship is mother-child. That's not a sexual relationship. And so I see this quite often. So it's a mistake that some women can fall for.
What are some signs that people they might not even realize that they're being the mother and making them out to be the son?
I guess if they're nagging, micromanaging, criticizing, finding fault with, rather than acknowledging, respecting. So if it's an equal partnership, then you're going to not acknowledge and respect your man. If it's more nagging, finding fault with, it can be in the tone of voice. Like if you find yourself speaking like a parent would speak to a child, that's another clue. You know, like telling off or these kind of things. You know, there's little bits of it dip into my relationship sometimes, and whenever, not all the time, occasionally happens. I'm like, she's just slipped into mother there for a little bit and hasn't realized she's doing it. Well, she's a mum, so she's a mum, 23 hours a day. So sometimes when I walk in, she's still in mother mode. So there's that aspect of the mother in a relationship. People pleaser, that's kind of across the board, 50-50 split, men and women. But the people pleaser is a particularly nasty form of shadow because you're too agreeable and you say yes to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to. And so you should be saying no. And you know you should be saying no, but you don't. You say yes instead. And then you just become overwhelmed with all the things that you've said yes to, and you become resentful because you have no time for you.
I am also a recovering people pleaser. As you said, it's very common amongst people. And you just said there, you said yes, but you know you should have said no. What happens if you don't know that you should have said no?
Your body will give you a subtle signal.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be, I know that you work with women, but with a particular focus on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, our body gives us very subtle signals. If you tell a lie, sometimes you won't even know you've told the lie. But if you get used to paying really close attention to subtle signals in the body, you'll get a signal if you tell a lie. It might be that you gulp, not swallow, or you might touch your nose or something like this, or you might just feel a bit tense or raise your shoulders up or look away. Like your body will give you little tells,
Mm-hmm.
little signals when you're being inauthentic.
Oh, look, I'm scratching my nose, but I'm telling the truth. I swear, I swear. But I noticed that I would scratch my back, like scratch the skin on my upper back. Would be now you're saying that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's probably a good telltale sign for me. And for people that have been doing it for a really long time, that's where the messages from the body get louder, and you start to get diagnoses or symptoms that are more conscious, like you're getting acne or you're getting rashes or you're getting all of these different things you can actually physically see. They're less subtle as like, oh, you gulped or you scratched your nose or you did these different things.
Yeah, I can give you an example there when you're talking about physical symptoms, because I've just been through this recently and recovering from it. So, our little baby Audrey had quite a significant event when she was 6 days old, and we nearly lost her, and it was a very traumatic time. And through that process, we spent 9 days in 3 different hospitals, and I think in those 9 days, I had about 3 or 4 hours sleep max total. And something happened to me that had never happened to me before. I've been fatigued before, but my battery went to zero because I was just there for my family those whole 9 days, not sleeping, hyper vigilant, hyper alert, doing all the things I had to do. And then at some point, I was holding my baby. Beck had passed out asleep. I had a bottle I needed to feed her, and I hit the wall, and my eye blew out. Like I went partially blind temporarily in my left eye, and I felt like I was having a stroke, and I was about to collapse on the floor, and I'm holding my baby, and I said to the nurse, "You need to take my baby and feed it." She goes, "I don't have time. I've got a new patient I'm admitting." I'm like, "No, you don't get it. You need to take my baby now. I'm about to collapse." And she looked at me like I was some weakling or something. And I just passed my baby over to her and just got on the floor and collapsed. And I passed out and I woke up, I don't know how many hours later. Anyway, my eye, it's come good, but for a long time it was, I had to go see the ophthalmologist, and it's okay. But I then developed a rash, and that rash has been there. It's just about all gone now. I did some work on this recently, using another method similar to shadow to identify what's hiding behind this rash. And what I discovered was an identity that I created in that moment when I was at maximum upset. Like my body was completely traumatized. It was a pivotal moment in my life. I'd never been there before. And what I decided was that I didn't know I decided until I looked. I'm broken. So I created the identity. I'm broken. I'm a broken man. Right? And so since I made that identity, I'm a broken man, I've been having a whole group of different symptoms. A problem with my hip, a problem with my knee, a rash, like I'm a broken man. And so this identity that I created, I wasn't aware I created it at the time. I only identified it when I did this process to get in touch with what was hiding underneath it. And since then, my hip's better, my rash is improving. So the identity that I created in my subconscious, I'm a broken man, was playing out in the cells in my body. I learned about this in yoga when I was in the ashram in India, they talk about the psychoneuroendocrine axis. So some of the endocrine glands are actually in the brain, attached to the brain, like the pituitary, the hypothalamus. Yep. So the brain is both a neurological and an endocrine organ.
Mm-hmm.
So, and your brain is where you have your memories and your thoughts and your upsets and your traumas. So it's all right there. So an unconscious memory or trauma or a blocked emotion in the brain is connected to the same tissue that's connected to your endocrine system, the master glands in the endocrine system. So everything in the body is governed either by the nervous system through electrical impulses or by the hormonal system, the endocrine system through hormones. That governs most of the processes in the body. So a thought or a memory or a trauma can percolate down through the system from somewhere stored in the brain, in the neurological system, so down there through the electrical system, into organs and then tissues and then cells, or through the endocrine process through hormones, going to organs, then tissues, then cells. And that's how I think trauma or psychological stuff can manifest as physical symptoms. And so when I dug out the root of this identity that I created, that I'm a broken man, I just did a process where I rewrote that identity, and I'm no longer a broken man. So the new program in there, if you like to call it that, or my new mantra is I'm not a broken man. I'm whole and complete. And so now those symptoms are starting to subside.
Are you feeling drained no matter how much you rest? Noticing that hair's falling out in the shower, or dry skin that just won't hydrate? Or maybe you're struggling with your weight no matter how much you try. And you've been to the doctor, they've ran the tests, and they said that everything looks normal, but everything feels anything but. These are all ways that your body might be whispering or shouting for support. If any of that sounds familiar, our fatigue symptom series is a beautiful place to start listening differently. We run symptom series every few months using our Female Fundamentals framework, breaking symptoms down through a medical, functional, and energetic lens, so you can finally understand what your body is actually telling you. This August, we're focusing on fatigue, but not just in the I'm tired kind of way. This is for the women who feel like their body is slowing down, their mind is foggy, and their spark is gone. It kicks off with a live group call with me where we tune in to the version of you that you want to become. Then you'll receive simple, bite-sized tools like a boundaries self-hypnosis and IFS guided explorations to rewire your actions that keep burning you out. Then you'll find that you'll get a symptom decoder to help you navigate common conditions like hypothyroidism, iron deficiency, sleep apnea, and more, plus tools to know how to support your fundamentals. This isn't just about taking a stab in the dark and hoping for the best. It's listening to your body and giving it what it needs without the bias. We wrap up with a live Q&A where you can bring your questions, your story, and get real answers in real time. And you get it all for just $99. We start in August. You can join now via our website link in the show notes. Remember, your fatigue isn't a sign you're broken. It's your body's way of talking to you. It's time to listen in a different way.
It's the story and it's the meaning that we make about the events that will cause us to possibly take on a meaning, then that leads us to take on an identity, and then that can physiologically change what's happening in our body. And also, I feel like changes our actions and what we beliefs that we have in our day. So it's like, if I believe I'm broken, then well, I'm not going to go to the gym because my hip's sore, and I need to make sure I'm taken care of. And you're altering everything else and then it's forming you into that sort of pattern even more.
100%. And some of these stories that we made up when we were really upset, they're unconscious. And then people say, well, hang on, well, how can an unconscious story shape my choices and actions? Because people think they're making their choices and actions based on their conscious grasp of reality, but I can show you how they're not. And the analogy for this, this is one of the principles in my shadow work course, is that, so imagine you're walking in the dark in the woods, not in the dark, at dusk. You're walking in the woods and you look down on the ground and you see a snake. And so you quickly retreat back to a safe distance, yeah? And then you look down again and you notice, oh, it's not a snake at all. It's a piece of rope. So what was it that caused your action, the choice that you took?
Belief.
Was it reality or was it a belief?
Was it?
It was a belief. So because I believed it to be a snake, I took this action. In reality, it's a piece of rope. I don't need to step away from a piece of rope. So that kind of demonstrates how it can be a belief that can shape a choice or an action rather than reality. Now, not all our beliefs are conscious. In fact, a lot of our beliefs are unconscious. So if I believe, for instance, I'm a broken man or there's something wrong with me or I'm not good enough, if I have those unconscious beliefs and I haven't identified them because they're in my shadow, because they're hidden from me, I work with women who have these beliefs that they're not good enough and there's something wrong with them, and they keep attracting the wrong kind of partner. And they don't know why they keep attracting the wrong kind of partner. Well, their unconscious beliefs are making their choices, not their conscious thought that I want a high value man. It's their unconscious belief that they're not good enough or there's something wrong with them is making unconscious choices. And then they hook up with someone who's not suitable for them.
I've got so many more questions that I want to ask you. So if someone does start to identify one of those, one of the unconscious beliefs then starts to be conscious. Say, for instance, what you just said there, where you're like, oh, wow, maybe it is that I don't feel like I'm enough. And that's why my reality is that I'm attracting in all of these men that aren't high value. What would you suggest someone do when they start to become conscious of these unconscious things?
That's the process of shadow work, what you're basically asking there. Like, what is the process of that? What are the processes in shadow work? And you've done some shadow work yourself. And so the first step in shadow work is to make the unconscious conscious. So you have to identify you have this story that you're not enough or there's something wrong with you. So it's not necessary, but it can be helpful. Like, oh, when did I decide that? Oh, when I put my hand up in class because they asked me the question and I got it wrong and the whole class laughed at me. And then in that moment, as that 5-year-old person, I decided I'm not enough and that I'm not going to speak up again. This is when it happens. These things happen in early childhood, a lot of them. And so we decide something about ourselves. And unless we undecide that, we're going to keep deciding that about ourselves. And so a lot of us are walking around with, I don't belong, I'm not enough, there's something wrong with me. And that's an inner critic or inner voice. And so you first identify it. That's the first step. The second step I've already said is declare it. You need to tell someone else that you think that about yourself. And so the next step is to challenge it, because you'll see it as a truth rather than a self-limiting belief created by an upset young person when things weren't going well.
Yeah.
You'll believe you're not enough. Instead of saying, oh, this is just something I decided about myself when I was 5 and I was upset. And this story, this identity, this belief I've created has no place in my life as a, single woman in her, in her mid-30s or whatever. The story that I'm not enough or that I don't belong or there's something wrong with me. It's an old story from childhood that I've never bothered to reality test or challenge. And then if you look back, the other thing you'll notice is that, it's your story. It's your identity. You created it. You made it up. I mean, there were events that led to it. There was the upsetting event, but people do different things, make up different stories or different identities based on those events. If you decided that you're not good enough, then that's the decision you made, and we all make similar decisions, right? And so the idea is to identify it, name it, declare it, challenge it, and it's only a story that you created. So I just suggest people recreate that story. Like, if that story's not working for you, that there's something wrong with you, what's another story that you could recreate in its place that would be a better story? Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Could be something that simple. Or I'm awesome. Or I'm more than enough. Just change the story and you change your life. But it can't be that simple. It can't be that simple, people say.
Well, as we said before, when it's the story then you identify it, and it changes your beliefs, and that changes your actions. So if we can look at it like that, and you say, well, do you believe that your actions change your reality? Of course. It's like, well, the things that are driving your actions are all of these other things. So it, 100% does change your life.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. Different actions create different results. And you won't get to the different actions if you're hanging on the same belief. So change the belief, your actions change, your results change. And people are, I can't, I need to go and do therapy or plant medicine, or I need to throw up in a bucket, or whatever it is I need to do to get rid of this trauma, that there's something wrong with me. I'm like, no, you don't need to do all that.
Yeah.
I've done all that. I've been to psychologists. I spent years as a patient, in psychotherapy. I did years of yoga and meditation. I did years of plant medicines and psychedelics. I tried all the things to work through all my traumas and get to my most authentic and empowered self. And after 40 years, I was pretty much where I started. And then I discovered shadow work. And shadow work did all the heavy lifting. Some of those other modalities, it's not that they did nothing, but they certainly didn't transform me.
Because I see, and I have been in that state as well, and know a lot of people that are and currently are in the state of, well, I'm doing the yoga, I'm doing the meditation, I'm going to do plant medicine, I'm seeing this different type of therapist, and then this one, and then this one, because everyone's trying to figure out what's wrong with them. Like, tell me what's wrong. I just need to figure out what's wrong, and then I'll be okay.
Yep.
And what I've found is, for me, myself, when I've been coming at it from the place of, well, when I fix this thing, then I'm going to be good, then I'm going to be okay. And it's being driven by a fear or a lack of something. But for me, what's helped, and I'm not sure whether this is from your professional opinion, whether this is a beneficial thing or not, but when I come from it from a place of love, and like, oh, I'm not going hunting for all these things that are bad about me to fix, and then I'm going to be okay. It's like, okay, I get to acknowledge it, and I'm okay anyway. And these things are coming up, and I can integrate them in whichever way. But it's coming from love, not fear. And then you're not getting sort of stuck in that loop of always hunting for things to make yourself better. Do you see that a lot?
Okay, stop. First of all, I'd say stop doing what you're doing. And you need to ask a better question. Because if the question they're asking themselves is, what's wrong with me? It's not a very helpful question. And I sometimes, look, if you ask the question, what's wrong with me? You're going to come up with a couple of pages of all the things that are wrong with you. And then you're in a world of wrong. And you'll go and spend a couple $100,000 on different therapies to try and fix you because you're wrong. So if people have that story that there's something wrong with them, I say, look, ask a question. Throw that page, 2 pages out of the things that are wrong with you. And I want you to start another list. What's not working about you? Totally different question. You'll get totally different answers. And they might say, I drink too much alcohol. I'm like, yeah, you do. I eat junk food. Mm-hmm. I overwork. Uh-huh. I date the wrong people. Mm-hmm. So they have a list of all the things that aren't working about them. And I say there's nothing wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with your relationship. But there are things that aren't working about you, and there are things that aren't working about your relationship. And as a coach, my job is to get to work on those things that aren't working with you. Mm-hmm. So when I'm coaching someone, I'm not looking at what's wrong with them. I'd be a lousy coach if I did. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my clients, but there are things about them that aren't working. And so when you just reframe the question and you get a different picture. Now, if there's something wrong with me, that implies, like, I don't even think in terms of right, wrong, good or bad. Like, those kind of binary things don't work for me so much. Mm-hmm. I'm more interested in what works and what doesn't work rather than what's right or what's wrong. Mm-hmm. If you go down wrong, then you're like, I need to fix something. There's something inherently bad or not good about me. So then you're going to go to the more things like yoga, meditation, Buddhism, plant ceremonies, all these things that are really quite light. And I'm going to try and improve myself by going closer to the light. I think that's mostly spiritual bypass. Mm-hmm. And what spiritual bypass really means is that when I supplement the real deep spiritual work with these other spiritual practices that look like I'm, trying to do the right thing. And Jung's quite clear about this. Like, if you want to get to the light, the only way to get there is through the dark. That's the clue. And so when I realized this, because I was doing all those things, going off to ashrams and doing yoga and meditation and kundalini and all the things and plant ceremonies and ice baths and breath work. Look, they're all wonderful things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things or any that they don't work. It's that the real deep spiritual work is to face the skeletons in your closet.
The shadow.
Confront your demons. Yeah, your dirty little secrets. Some people, I don't have any dirty secrets. Well, okay, maybe you don't. Your addictions. I don't have any addictions. Well, are you on your phone all day? You're doing online shopping? Like, you'll have some addiction. It might not be also alcohol, but you'll be addicted to something. Very few people don't have addictive behavior patterns. Are you living an undisciplined life and then wondering why things aren't working out? So there's lots of stuff in the shadow. And a lot of those things that are hidden from you are the reason why your life's not going how you'd like it to go.
I love that reframe.
You're not working. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. And the things about me that aren't working are often hidden from me. Because if I knew them, I would just get them working on my own. So when I'm coaching someone, I'm just asking them questions like, what are the dumb things you do every day that if you weren't doing, your life would be better? Where do you give up on yourself and abandon yourself every day? Yeah. What are the things that you avoid that if you didn't avoid them, your life would be better? These kind of questions, they're just inquiries to dig up all the things that aren't working that are lying in the shadow. Yeah?
I just wanted to finish with this question. And it's very fitting that you've just welcomed a new baby, beautiful girl, Audrey. So having welcomed her into this world with Beck, what's one belief about her body and life that you want to instill in her?
She prepared for this question because I knew it was coming. So I'm going to do something very unethical and conduct a scientific experiment on our child, in that I'm going to raise her as best I can, shadow informed. Don't report me to Child Protection Services. It's not as bad as it sounds. So really what that means is that, so we create our shadow when we decide we're not certain things. So all the things I decide I am become my persona and my ego. All the things I decide I'm not become my shadow. So, for example, little girls, if they start being aggressive and exhibit aggression, some parents might see that as unladylike and, teach them to suppress their aggression and become sweet little nice girls. I don't know if that's a thing, but it was a thing when I was growing. So if our child, Audrey, starts exhibiting aggression, I'm certainly not going to give her the impression that there's anything wrong or bad about aggression and that she doesn't have to suppress it. I'm going to name it for her so that she has a name for what she's expressing. And then I'm going to guide her about how you use aggression, when you use it, what you do with it, how you channel it. I'm not going to teach her to not be aggressive because that could be her safety. Yeah, I was living with a single mother back when I was a single man and dating, and she had a daughter who I think was about 7 at the time. And I remember one night, the 7-year-old daughter just came in and started wailing on me, like punching, kicking, like really going to town. And I was just watching her and I was like, you go, like just go at it, like have at it. Because I didn't think she was really going to hurt me badly. And I just thought this girl's got some aggression in her that she needs to let out. And the mother's like, stop that. I'm like, no, don't tell her to stop. Please don't tell her to stop. Please let me handle this. And I just said, get that all out of you. And she got it all out of her. And we had some chats about, she says, why did you handle it that way? I said, well, it's there. The aggression's there. I'm not going to teach her to repress a natural impulse. I don't know if that's in her best interest for her to suppress this. I think it's better that it comes out. And it turns out that, that anger was really towards her father. who, had left, and, because now she's living with a single mum and that. And so she had some anger that she was storing towards her father. That's what I figured it probably was. And I wanted her to have an outlet for it. And it wasn't doing me any harm. And so I gave that child the gift of being able to express some of their shadow without making it wrong. And then had a conversation with her mother that I don't think it's healthy for her to suppress her natural feelings and emotions. I think it's for her healthy to vent them, and then ask her, where's that coming from? And so as my child starts to express these kind of traits or characteristics, I'm not going to teach her to suppress, reject, or deny any aspect of self. I'm just going to name it, give it a place, and tell her how to manage that aspect of herself. But I'm about to get, because I want my daughter to be able to stand up to bullies.
Mhm.
I'm going to teach her how to channel her aggression, probably martial arts or something like that, if she wants that. But I'm about to get a little bit political and risk offending some people, but I'm happy to go there. I'm going to teach my daughter that she doesn't need to have women's rights over her body. Human rights over her body are enough. So my body, my choice applies to women and men. And another thing I'm going to teach her is that when she gets pregnant, that body inside her is not her body, but a gift from God.
If anyone needs to work with you or wants to work with you, how can they do that?
That's pretty easy. I have a website, isaiacoaching.com, ISAIA, isaiacoaching.com. You can find me on Instagram, Isaiah Coaching. I have a podcast. You can find that on Spotify, again, Isaiah Coaching. So I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm quite busy, and it's a new year coming up, and there is some room on my book. So if people like my approach and want to do some shadow work, I might be available. I've got some online courses that they could do as well.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm sure everyone's gotten a lot out of it. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Anthea. I really appreciate it. And I want to acknowledge all the great work you're doing in the women's space.
If this episode resonated and you feel like you're stuck in the space between symptoms and solutions, you're not alone. I've been there too, and that's why I created all of this. From the book, if you're just starting to listen, or the test if you want clarity your bloods couldn't give you, or the body-led experience if you've tried doing it all and still feel flat. Well, sometimes you need something specific, like one of our symptom series for a deep dive support on topics like fatigue and menopause. So wherever you start, just know your body's already guiding you. Share this with someone who needs it, and don't forget to follow and rate the show. Please remember, this episode is for educational purposes only. Always consult a qualified health practitioner before making any medical decisions. Every body is different, and so is every healing journey.